Okay, so this is my review of The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, Part 1. Now, as you may have heard, The Hobbit is, well, there's a lot of hype about the new technology that's been involved in this film. For example, the 48 frames per second, and even in America now they've got the D-Box experience, which doesn't excite me at all as a moviegoer and a movie fan. Um, in regards to the film, though, being a huge Lord of the Rings fan, of course I'm going to love The Hobbit. I mean, it's kind of being biased, but I mean, what can you do? I mean, I love the whole franchise. I love the books particularly. Now they've changed a lot of things when it comes to the actual film. An example being the dwarves. Um, in the film, they made it so that the dwarves were doing this to reclaim, well, to get their home back, basically, to get Erebor back. Um, and in the book, it was more about getting back their gold, which was it was a nice change because it made it more honourable. Although, why they now need Bilbo, because in the book and in the film they referenced him being the burglar to get the gold. Why they need him at all now is a mystery to me. I mean, maybe they need him for, sneaking past the dragon to, I don't know, plant satchel charges. I don't know. Don't ask. I just don't know. But there's a lot of returning characters. An example, Gandalf. Um, Hugo Weaving is Elrond. I love him more now in The Hobbit than I ever loved him in Lord of the Rings, because in Lord of the Rings he was a bit boring. He was a bit too, it's like everything is doomed. We're all doomed, and it's not just. It's really not any sort of. It just it wasn't fun, and it wasn't interesting to listen to him. Whereas in The Hobbit now he's much more he's much more awesome. And I also love I love the fact that Kate Blanchett now is Galadriel once again. She looks exactly the same as she did in the Fellowship, which is kind of funny considering it's been 10 years since she was in the Lord of the Rings, and she looks exactly the same. So the makeup must have advanced quite a bit. Either that or Kate Blanchett doesn't age at all. Anyway, so the story we open with the old Bilbo giving a narrative upon what happened, and basically this evil dragon Smaug, who's they call him a fire drake, but we all know he's a dragon. I mean, flying, breathes fire. I suppose covet gold isn't really applicable to all dragons, but basically, no one's explained this in any reviews that I've personally seen, which was dragons need the gold to stay alive. In Tolkien's universe, dragons eat gold to stay alive. It maintains their powerful skin. It allows them to breathe fire. Don't ask me on the chemistry. I mean, I suppose maybe precious metals are good energy for producing gases that burn easily. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So Smaug is coveting this treasure in Erebor. The dwarves have been driven from the homeland. Now, this is one of the things that annoyed me. Thranduil, with his kick-ass elk, his sort of deer ride thing, but basically it's Thranduil on a deer, which is kind of funny. I suppose he is a man of nature, though. Anyway, the fact that annoys me is, in the books, it was explaining how Thranduil didn't want to risk the lives of his men to reclaim the dwarven gold, but in the film, they made it more that it was Thranduil didn't want to endanger the lives of his men to save the dwarves. Now, I can appreciate that if Thranduil turned up with maybe 10, 15 guys and he was like, oh, I'm totally unprepared. But he turned up. Now, I don't know if anyone knows the exact figure, but I do. The exact figure is he turned up with 8,500 elves, fully armoured, fully equipped for battle, and he didn't help them reclaim their home. Which is just... It's basically like a troll, basically, to the dwarves. It's like, oh, we turned up with an entire army and you're screwed. I've never made it sound like that in my entire life. Don't ask me why I did it now. It's possibly because it's my first video. Anyway, back to the review. We're getting off track here. So the story then opens up with... now, some people have complained about this, but I like it, is they've tied everything in perfectly. Like, at the end of the old Bilbo segment, he tells Frodo to go off and surprise Gandalf in East Farthing Wood. Yes, I totally remembered that name, East Farthing Wood, and yeah, they tied it all nicely together. And then Bilbo goes on, "Oh, I wasn't late back in my day. I was very respectable." And then it opens up, and then it's about a minute later that Gandalf comes on the scene, and he's asked, because Bilbo says, "Good morning," and then Gandalf's like, "What do you mean, good morning? Do you mean that it is a good morning on this particular day? Or are you saying that this is a morning to be good on?" Now, I thought that was just brilliant. I couldn't stop laughing. And there was maybe 4 or 5 other people in the theatre with me that were actually laughing, but I mean, I couldn't stop laughing because it's so... It's just so socially awkward just to have this guy, you know, you're trying to be nice and polite, and he's just going, "What do you mean?" Which was kind of funny. Anyway, in the end, sorry, Gandalf sends. Oh no, he marks this this dwarven symbol on Bilbo's door, signalling to the dwarves of this company that are going to hunt down Smaug that this is the place they'll be meeting for the journey set off, I suppose. Anyway, this whole half-hour scene, people were complaining that it was a bit long at the start, but I mean, I don't mind that because you need to allow characters to build up. If you don't allow them to build up, then there's no point in having the film at all, because there's just no point. So, I don't know what you expect, but anyway. So, there's this whole scene about the dining, and oh, my favourite scene is when Bomber is going to the dining room with 3 full blocks of cheese, and Martin Freeman, who plays Bilbo, he says, I'm thinking, what, should I spoil this for you or not? Yeah, he says, "Don't you need a cheese knife?" And then James Nesbitt, playing one of the dwarves, I can't remember his name now, but playing one of the dwarves, he says, "Oh, he eats it by the block." And it's like, it's so funny. I can't get over how hilarious that was, for me anyway. You can feel free to leave your own opinion in the comment section. But yeah, so after said dining and then eventually, oh no, before all this, sorry, I'm skipping ahead of really funny moments. There's a point at the start of when the first dwarf, Dwalin, and he's had the dinner, and the door rings, and he says, "That'll be the door," and it's just, oh goodness. As a Scottish person, I think they've definitely based Dwalin off Scottish people, because, I mean, the actor's Scottish, but I mean, I can't help reminding me of Scottish people in that sense. But moving on, they go on this journey, and they're basically, at this moment, they're heading to Rivendell. Now, on the journey, they have this sort of flashback cutscene where they're basically, after Erebor was captured, Thraw, who was Thorin's granddad, he tried to reclaim the ancient dwarf settlement of Moria, and in doing so, he was killed by this. People have called him generic, but I don't think he's generic at all. His name is Aesog, not Azog or Olu or Ashog, as some people have called him as a joke. Aesog, that is his name. And basically, Aesog is a Gundabad orc. Now, another question people have raised, from what I've heard, is that they're wondering, where's Gundabad? Gundabad is basically west of Angmar, completely north of the Misty Mountains. They're a different breed from the goblins of the Misty Mountains or the orcs of Mordor. Gundabad is where the tough orcs are, because it's such a hospitable climate and hospitable land up there. They have to be tough, and so these orcs are a lot worse than they were, say in Lord of the Rings. And another comparison to make about this film is that in Lord of the Rings, it wasn't all that much of a cheery mood. It was quite, if we don't get the ring to Mount Doom, we're all gonna die. And it was just a bit depressing. Whereas in The Hobbit, the humour level it's been kicked up quite dramatically. And I personally love that about a film when they change it to match the way the story was set, because Tolkien did write The Hobbit for his children, So I mean, obviously, it is a children-based book. Anyway, yes. So after Aesog has this big battle with Thorn, Thorn cuts off his left hand, and then there's this big dramatic cry where Thorn's like, "Go back!" And then the dwarves they push on to victory. Although, as Balin explains, there was no feast that night because it had been equal casualties on both. Although the dwarves had won and they had more survivors, there had been too many died on both sides that it wasn't any cause to celebrate. Anyway, once they get to Rivendell, Thorin has this whole sort of mental struggle about whether to give Elrond or Agent Smith the map, which Gandalf gave him because they're trying to find the secret entrance to Erebor or the Lonely Mountain, whichever you prefer. And yeah, I mean, it's quite a dramatic scene, and I won't spoil anything for you on that front because it is a good scene, and I would recommend you if it's by the time this video goes up, if it's not already been put on video or no, DVD, sorry, or any other case. But I digress. After they've been to Rivendell, they encounter Goblin Town as they're passing over the Misty Mountains. And Goblin Town is basically this. It's quite a forgotten realm because it doesn't get much mention in the books. It gets a mention in the Silmarillion, and I would definitely recommend reading that. But yes, so they're in this Goblin Town, and the chief goblin, or the Great Goblin as he's known, he's just brilliant. I mean, he's so funny. I mean, he's purely disgusting, but he's hilarious to watch. I mean, if you imagine, say, like one of these supersized Americans, if you imagine that as a goblin, that's basically the Great Goblin. He is enormous. And I won't spoil anything on that front, but during the start, Bilbo gets separated from the rest of the company, and so he has to. Well, I mean, if you've read the books, you'll know who he encounters. But I will, if you don't want, basically, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. So if you don't want to hear what happens, just pause the video or skip the next few minutes. Basically, he encounters Gollum, and Gollum, as we all know, being played by Andy Serkis. I love Gollum CGI. It's so well done. He looks so real, and the emotion in his eyes is just. You can tell that he's dangerous yet innocent. He's vicious yet funny and happy, because they didn't really explain this much in the books. Because in the books, this is set before Lord of the Rings, remember, so it's just Gollum. There was no Smeagol, but they added that to the film because they thought it would be a funny twist, and it was. Because when they were having the game of wits over riddles, it was just brilliant, because I just remember this one scene where Gollum's like, he gives Bilbo the riddle, and then Smeagol, it switches to Smeagol, and he goes, "We knows," and then Gollum's like, "Shut up!" And it's a pretty hysterical scene, I thought, and I was laughing pretty much the whole way through. Few dramatic moments, but nothing out of the blue. Anyway, so it ends in quite a dramatic fashion as they're on this pinnacle after they escape Goblin Town, and they're being hunted once again by Aesog and his orc pack. And so, yeah, and our favourite scene, Gandalf uses acorns, like giant acorns, as grenades. Basically, he lights them on fire, and then he throws them into these sort of dry bushes, and it sets the whole place on fire. And then there's this really dramatic scene where Aesog is there, and Thorin's like, "No!" And yeah, and so Thorin, he picks up his weapon plus his tree shield and runs at him. And I would have liked it if they'd come up with an individual soundtrack for this moment, but it was the exact same music that was played on Weathertop in the Fellowship of the Ring when Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin were being cornered atop Weathertop, basically. Now I would have liked them to have come up with a different soundtrack for this part, but I feel that it works. Sorry, in the sense that he's facing down the villain, and it's quite a good moment actually. Anyway, once that's been completed, yeah, that's pretty much the film over, because the giant eagles come to rescue Thorin from his terrible fate. Oh, and before that though, Bilbo shows tremendous courage. Now this is when his character is really completely grown, because Bilbo he takes up Sting, his sword, and he lunges at this Gundabad orc, this pale orc, and then he gets thrown down beside Thorin, and then just as Bilbo's about to be cornered by three wargs and obviously the orc riders, the dramatic music, bam, 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 and basically all the dwarves come and they try to annihilate the orc pack. They fail horribly, and then just when you think, oh, hope is lost, sorry, the eagles come and they save them, and it's quite a heartfelt scene. Aside from it's not really comedy, but it's like there's a few sort of almost sarcastic moments in it, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen the film. Anyway, so the eagles carry them to this pinnacle, which is just west of Mirkwood. So obviously they're saving that for the second film. Now I'm not sure about the latest, but I heard it was going to be 3 films, but it looks like they're only going to do it in 2 films. So I mean, if anyone has any idea about what's going on there, would you please let me know in the comment section? Because I've got absolutely no idea what's going on otherwise. Anyway, yeah, so that pretty much ends off my review of The Hobbit. Now I'll go over some of the gadgets. I mean, I went over them briefly at the start, but I have to get this out of my system. 3D. Don't ever, ever, ever buy it. 3D is a total rip-off. Basically, they are charging you £5 extra, maybe $7, depending on where you are around the world. They're charging you that for the sake of seeing a bat more clearly when it lunges out of the screen. And it's so boring, and it's just, well, not, sorry, wrong word choice. Not boring, but it's not worth the extra money. And I mean, when I saw it in 2D, I got just as much of a thrill as I did when it was in 3D. And so, I mean, there's absolutely no point in getting 3D. Sorry about that, I'm not feeling too well. Anyway, yeah, it's not even worth thinking about trying to go and get 3D, because it is a total rip-off, there is no point, and yeah. Now, the 40 frames per second, which is the new technology, using the red cameras, basically, it doesn't take anything away from the film, but I don't feel that it adds enough for you to justify using it in, like, this kind of film, because it just, we've been used to 24 frames per second in film screens for what, 80, 90 plus years now, and it's basically just, it does make it look more real, but in some cases it makes it like you're watching a TV show. In fact, it's basically like you're watching a very, very expensive, very well made, and very well directed soap opera. Is basically what it looks like to my eyes. And yeah, that's all I have to say about the 48 frames per second. In regards to the whole film experience, I would much rather see it in 2D with the 48 or 24 frames per second than I ever would in 3D, because 3D is just total rip-off. Don't bother seeing it in 3D, because it's a waste of your money and it's a waste of your time. And that pretty much concludes the review. Let's see if there's anything I've missed. Oh yeah, there's one big plot twist that I forgot to mention. Radagast the Brown. He is the 5th wizard that Gandalf mentions when he's talking about the wizards. He says there's Gandalf the Grey, obviously, Saruman the White, obviously, the 2 bruisers, as far as I could tell from what Gandalf was saying. He forgot their names, and then Radagast the Brown. And I liked Radagast. I liked his character, and obviously Sylvester McCoy as Radagast made my day, because yeah. Anyway, continuing on with the review. So Radagast is basically, he watches over Mirkwood and all the vast forest lands to the east of the Misty Mountains, and it's a good thing too, obviously, as Gandalf says, because I'm trying not to spoil it for you, but I have to, just because I can't detail it any other way. Radagast, the forest where he was living has become tainted by a poison. Now, this poison has come from spawns of Argoniant. Now, if anyone knows who that is, feel free to leave it in the comment section. There's a little challenge for you. What is Argoniant? Do tell. Anyway, yeah. So and Radagast, he saves a couple of porcupines in the scene, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of girls who like that scene. It's a little thing for the gender, because I mean, not trying to be sexist here, but a lot of fans of Lord of the Rings tend to be male. Just my experience. Anyway, so yes, and Radagast, he follows these creatures of Argoniant. He follows them all the way to the old abandoned fortress of Dol Guldur, and basically Dol Guldur is it was Sauron's evil fortress in Mirkwood for a while, but it was completely destroyed during the war against Sauron at the end of the Second Age, and so it's pretty much a wreck now. But people don't know who the Necromancer is. Now, here's a question for you. Who do we know from The Lord of the Rings who can summon dead things over and over and over again? Sauron. It's obvious. The ring wraiths, they don't die. And that's because of Sauron's magic. Now, the Necromancer is Sauron, but he's not in his state that he should be in. He's not in his full armour and everything. He's stuck in the void and he's trying to escape fully. Because the Barad-dûr fortress is destroyed, so he's regrouping his strength at this very grave, very hallowed place of Dol Guldur, where various battles have been fought, and various creatures, people and elves and so on have died. So he's recuperating his strength within the altars and the sanctums of Dol Guldur, basically. So just to clarify, the Necromancer is Sauron. So make sure you get that into your head. It's Sauron. Anyway, I digress with the remaining points of the review. Yeah, I mean, aside from all that, let's talk about Smaug. Now, Smaug, he got a lot of mention in the books, or in the book, obviously it's just one book, but I mean, there's a mention of dragons in the Silmarillion as well. Basically, Smaug is a fire drake that was bred way up in the northern mountains, which aren't on the Middle-earth map, but they are on the Ardun map. If you just type in ARDA into Google and you'll know what I'm talking about, if you, anyone who's watching this knows of Wikipedia. Anyway, so yeah, that pretty much concludes the review. But yeah, I mean, Smaug he's a dragon, basically. I mean, you know, big talons, big teeth, breathes fire, flies quickly, dangerous creature, all in all. I mean, just not someone you want to mess with, basically. And yeah, that pretty much concludes the review. So if you want more reviews from me, or if you want my walkthroughs, because that was my original idea for my YouTube channel, if you want more reviews from me, feel free to comment, rate and subscribe. And yeah, so I'll see you guys later.